Well, here we are. We've started this month of May, and I'm sure that many of you have heard this simple phrase of finish strong, right? Most especially probably for all of our seniors who are in their last weeks, probably more appropriately days here as high school students. And so they've been told, finish strong, right? Because I think many of you are infected with senioritis. I think even some of our juniors have gotten this, right? Like there's this sense that I just want to be done. But we're still called to finish strong. And why is that? Why try, right? We might say, well, why should I give it my all here at the end? I've given so much. And maybe you'd say, I really don't feel like trying because this year hasn't been what I maybe wanted it to be or what I hoped it would be. Or maybe academically you're like, why try? I can't get the grade I first wanted. And so, we're still encouraged to finish strong. Right, one of my favorite moments in sports happened in 1992 in the Summer Olympics in Barcelona. And there was this runner, Derek Redmond. Derek Redmond was a British sprinter. He did the 400. And his career was kind of interesting because it was marked with a lot of tragedy, a lot of times by which he had great gifts and talents, but because of injuries, he wasn't always able to perform at the premier races, the premier times and places. And here in 1992, here he was, strong, seemingly going to be competing for a great medal. And so he's in the semifinals. There's 8 runners. The 4 fastest make it to the finals. And so they begin, and he's in one of the middle lanes, expressing that he has a faster time, that he's probably a shoo-in. He just gets around and he'll make it to finals. And with about 250 meters left in the race, when you watch the video, you see him, he pulls up out of his sprint and he starts to hobble because something has gone wrong, right? He seemingly pulled something which turned out to be his hamstring, and he crouches down and he's discouraged. But I think in many ways this can be us, right, as we find ourselves in life, right? That things don't go as planned. And I think sometimes we think, the Christian life is one that, hey, if I sign up to do God's will, if I do that, everything's easy, right? It's comfortable. There shouldn't be problems because God's on my side, so it's all good. But we recognize that's not the case, right? We can think about all of our lives here and in some ways how things haven't gone as planned, right? Some of you had to go through deep sorrows or tragedies, times where we're like, I didn't sign up for this. This isn't what it was meant to be. God, you were on my side, but we recognize this is part of our Christian life. And so we say, yes, there were setbacks in our life. We've had them, right? Things didn't go as planned. We've been perhaps discouraged at times. But Christians, we don't give up. One of my favorite things that we have in our year as Christians is All Saints Day. And one of the readings, not in the liturgy, but oftentimes that gets brought up, is Hebrews 12, where we hear about the great cloud of witnesses. The great cloud of witnesses that are present, right? Cheering us on. It's almost like we can see ourselves in this stadium of life, and they cheer us on. And then in there it says to persevere in the race. Persevere, right? And this idea of persevering is really to continue in an action, even when it's difficult, right? Even when it seems like there's little prospect to success. And yet we're called to persevere. And why persevere when things seem to be falling apart? Right? Why persevere when things are difficult? And I'd say it's because this is how we're called to grow in holiness. Right? Think about the great saints, the great athletes, the great anything. They become great in the challenges. They rise to who they're called to be in and through the adversities. Right? And so this is the same thing with our life of faith. That when we're fixed to Christ rather than our plans, we're perfected. Right, I think about this is something that when we celebrate today, St. Joseph the Worker, right? Reminding us that the things we do matter. What you do, all of you do, it matters. Because we recognize that there's this interesting thing. Think about Jesus, right? Jesus doesn't come into life as a human that is an adult, right? He experiences everything. And he's not born into a palace either, right? He's born into a family of labor. I think about how much time he must have spent in the carpentry shop or the shop with Joseph, working, experiencing that we don't give up when things are hard. I imagine that there were times where it's like, Dad, I don't know if do we have to finish this table, right? He says, yes, let's persevere, right? You're gonna be here with me because you're my son, and I want you to experience this with me. And it shows us this thing that the church is reminding us today, that what we do, our work matters, right? So when we find ourselves saying, well, yeah, it seems like the thing I wanted to achieve, like I've already lost it. God's reminding us that what we do, regardless of what we might achieve in the eyes of the world, matters. Our efforts matter because you and I have dignity. That means that our work has dignity, even in the mundane, even in the ordinary. And this is the reality, is that our ordinary can become extraordinary if and when we unite it with God. Right? These ordinary things can be ways that we love God, right? Where we say, God, I'm going to persevere. I really don't want to go to my below average theology teacher's classroom today and have to put up with him or her, but I'm going to do it anyways. Lord, this is going to be an offering to you. Right? This ordinary thing I make extraordinary. I'm going to give my all. I'm going to give my effort. And we should do this throughout our whole life, because in doing so, we give glory to him. Right? I think many of us here have seen, especially you seniors, as you've gone through these halls of Pius for 4 years, we've got to see the many gifts and talents that you guys have. Right? We think about the various things that you do in the performing arts, academics, sports. You guys have a lot of gifts and talents. And the beautiful thing is that, yes, as we heard in our gospel, or our first reading in our psalm, that we have this kind of retelling of Jesus, and that the Father looks down and says, you are my son. And I think about it's almost like all those activities that you've had in these 4 years, that God shows up and he says, that's my son, that's my daughter. And I think about natural fathers and mothers, that how they delight showing up to many things, right? Because you are theirs. And how much more delightful that is when they get to see you giving your all and say, man, look at those gifts and talents I have, and they're using them, delighting in that. But when we do that for God, what it's doing is it's a gift, it's a prayer back to him, especially when we recognize that my gifts and talents are from him. So we can glorify him in our seemingly everyday kind of things. I just want to bring up one of my favorite saints in the last few years, because I think oftentimes when we think of the saints, we think of great successes. We think about, well, fine, those saints, they gave it their all, they persevered, they finished strong, but yeah, they had God on their side, and all these awesome things happened, miracles and all kinds of conversions. So I want to bring up St. Ansgar, and some of you have heard me talk about St. Ansgar. St. Ansgar is awesome. Okay, he's a 9th century saint who was the bishop of Hamburg, and he was instructed to go and spread the gospel. So that's what you do as Christians, right? Spread the gospel. And so he goes up into these Nordic countries, and he hangs out with the Vikings, these Viking people with their Nordic gods, and he's called to convert them. And Christianity, it takes a lot of effort. There's little fruits, not a lot of success, but what does he do? He keeps trying. He keeps trying. He keeps trying. And eventually, at some point, I don't remember why, but he leaves and he goes back to Hamburg. Either he's exiled or he's because of health, I don't know, but he leaves. And so he's planted all these seeds up in these Nordic countries. And not long after he leaves, all of his work, all of the seeds he planted, they die. There's no expression of Christianity there. So sometimes I jokingly say he's the patron saint of losers. That's not true. He's a saint, okay? He's got the ST in front of his name. But what he teaches us and reminds us is something beautiful, that what we do matters even when we don't succeed in the eyes of the world. Think about it. He's a saint. He succeeded in the eyes of God as he was faithful that whole time. And this comes back to one of my favorite quotes from Mother Teresa, who reminds us that we're not called to be successful. We're called to be faithful. So as you guys leave these halls of Pius, recognizing that we're not always going to be successful, but we're called to be faithful to God in all we do. And one of the beautiful things as we celebrate this May crowning today as we celebrate St. Joseph the Worker is that what you do matters and that you're not alone. Right? I love this idea of, again, thinking about All Saints' Day, that all these individuals are cheering for us. They want your success, and your success is to give your all. Give your heart, give your talents and gifts back to God. And as we celebrate this May crowning, and as we begin this month of May, given to and calling to mind and our Blessed Mother, that we recognize that God has given you that too. A mother in heaven who's cheering you on, seeking your good. And so, as we come here today, we just recognize that all of us here, I think, I've only had the pleasure of being with you guys for a year, but I think I can speak on behalf of all the faculty and staff to say that we recognize that you guys have many gifts and talents, and we want you to persevere. We want you to not give up, not just here, finish strong, but every day and every place that you go when you leave these halls. Right? We've seen the gifts and talents that you have, and we're so proud of you. I'd say we're proud of who you are, who you've become, and who it is that you when you go to all the walks of the world. I mean, you guys are going to go. It's going to be fun at graduation to hear about where all you guys are going. Right? Pius is going to go out and have this great, beautiful, beautiful expression to all the places in the world. And what are you going to do? In a beautiful way, you're going to show and express the love of God. And so, just in a special way, we're proud of you. We love you. And again, we're cheering for you along with the saints and our Blessed Mother as you go on to this next kind of aspect of your life. And I think Jesus is a thunderbolt at heart. And so I think as we're cheering you on, along with Jesus, we want to say, go Bolts and go our seniors.